Now that we understand some foundational items like a rectangle and a text and an image and a mouse area and all that, we can make some basic components. That's right, we're going to actually make our own component. This is something that's extremely advanced and complex in other libraries and frameworks and things of that nature. I mean, even in Qt widgets, Qt's other technology branch, the desktop graphic user interface, it can be very daunting to try to make your own custom widget. In QML, however, it's extremely easy. So we're going to make a basic button. We're going to shy away from signals because we're not quite there yet. And we want just the base functionality just to make something clickable on the screen without having to make multiple rectangles every single time. So let's dive in here and see what this takes. I'm going to right click our resource file. We're going to go to add new, go to Qt, QML file, and the naming convention's a little bit strict here. You can't do like all lower or all upper. You have to do camel case. I've not found that to be true on all platforms. On one box, it did take all lower. On another box, it just wouldn't. I think it's specific to Qt versioning and the specific build of Qt and all this other weird stuff. To be brutally honest, I don't understand it myself. I just know that if you deviate from the naming convention, you're going to have a bad time. So my button now lives inside of the resource, so it will be compiled. We can test to see if we have the naming convention right by typing my and then hitting space. Or you can start typing away and you'll see IntelliSense popping up. If you don't see IntelliSense pop up, it just isn't there, meaning QML is not going to automatically detect it. Inside our file, we have an item, which remember is a non-visual element. So it doesn't have things like color. If we try to set a color property, you see it just isn't there. We can add a color animation, but there's no color property. So what we're going to have to do is make some properties, add a rectangle, text, and some mouse area. Let's go ahead and start down that path. We're going to say ID root. Typical naming convention, I like to call my root object root just so I know what it is. We're going to set a width and a height. Typically you won't do this, but I want to do it just so when we add it, it automatically has a width and a height. Now we need to add property. Remember, a property has a type, a name, and a value. So the type, when in doubt, you can just say var, but because I know what type I want, a color in this case, I can actually just add it. Color, color, and then let's call this light gray. And if you're wondering what that color is, you just mouse over and it'll show us. And through the magic of copy and paste, we can take this and make some other properties as well. So now I want color clicked. And let's call this green. And I want a title. Title's not a color, it's a string. When in doubt, I can use var. In case you're ever wondering what basic types QML really honors, it's pretty limited, to be brutally honest with you. Colors, strings, numbers, 9 times out of 10 you'll just see people say var because they don't want to have to try to figure out whether or not QML really accepts it. It is in the documentation, but most of the time, even in the official Qt examples, they're just going to use var. Qt 6, I've heard that's all going to change and that you have to have strong typing, so be warned on that. Now, remember, an item's non-visual, so we need some sort of object, in this case a rectangle, and we'll call this ID myRec, and or we could have called it myArrow or whatever. Let's go ahead and drop an anchor. We're going to fill the parent. Our parent, of course, is this invisible item. And now we want to set the color. So we're going to say color. And this is where we're going to say, we can either say parent color, or we can say root.color. And there's other things you can do. You can do like component.color and things like that. I like specifically naming it. That way it doesn't get confused. I've seen it get confused a couple times and it was just infuriating trying to figure out what was going on. Now we're going to add a text. Let's call this display. And the actual text, I'm going to say root.title. So in case you're wondering, here's the root, and the property we've added is title. We've added the other property color. And let's go ahead and drop an anchor in this too. Now we want to be able to interact with this, so of course we need a mouse area. Don't really need an ID, but I'm going to add it. And we want to monitor the pressed and release signals, so we're going to say on pressed. And this is where you can just say parent.color, or you can actually say the myrec. This is part of the reason why I actually will embed like a mouse area in the rectangle. That way I can just say parent. I don't have to go back and go, oh, what was the name of this thing? I can just say parent. Makes it super, super easy. And then on released. So actually I got this backwards. I want to say color clicked. So when we press, we want to do the color clicked, and when we release, we want to return it back to its normal color. Looks pretty confusing. Let's go over it real quick. So we have an invisible item in there. We have a rectangle. In the rectangle, we have a text and a mouse area. And of course, we need to set that anchor. Otherwise, we have an invisible mouse area with a width and height of 0, 0. All right, let's drop this in and see what it looks like. Now, do we have to do any snazzy imports or any kind of craziness? No, we really don't. We can just say my button and then just add it in. Save and run. And it works. So let's make a few of these and let's customize the properties. So let's just get rid of that. I'm going to say middle. Boy, I screwed that all up, didn't I? And I'm just going to make a property called middle so I know where the middle is, minus 50. And I'm just going to say my button. And let's call this button 1. Color, I want this normal color to be red. I want the color clicked to be orange. And let's put the title in here of button 1. Pretty slick, huh? Let's run this, see what that looks like. Very cool. Now let's make some more buttons. I'm just going to grab this, copy, paste. This is going to be called button 2. Button 2, I want to say, let's center this bad boy. So I'm going to say so I'm just going to take the parent's width divided by 2 minus this button's width divided by 2 gets us dead center. And then we're going to put that in the middle on the y-axis. And then let's make this blue. And say button 2. And we're just going to keep adding some more here. So I'm going to say button 3. And button 3, I'm just going to say parent.width minus 200. And let's go ahead and keep this on the middle y-axis here. And let's call this green. Freen's not even a color. Green. There we go. Title. I want to do a multi-line title here. So I'm going to say button 3. And let's test that and see what that looks like. There's our buttons. So we've got this one, button 2, and button 3, and it has multi-line. So we have inline HTML, and we're going to add a big long button on the bottom and show that you can actually put some special encoding in there. It gets really, really cool. And let's call that button 4. And this is going to be, in the center, and let's do middle plus 120. We're going to make this light blue, and this title, we're just going to say bold, italic, sometimes HTML is not the easiest thing to type. There we go. Turn the italic off, and then I want to underline that, and we're going to say button. So we've got a bunch of inline HTML. Let's go ahead and save and run. And oh, we want to actually change that a little bit. We want to set that width to really fill that thing up. So let's go ahead and say width. There we go. Super long button. Don't like it that thick, so I'm going to say height. And let's put the height at just some crazy number like 35. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Once we get a little more in depth in components, I'll show you how to actually add a signal so that you can do like an on-click, on-press, things like that in your component.